one minute you talking about God, next minute you snapping on somebody. And what I mean by snapping, I'm not saying that you don't supposed to. See, people think when things come up, we don't supposed to plead our case. That's not what I'm saying. Because you're supposed to plead your case. What I'm saying is, a lot of these people have filthy communication coming out of their mouth. They say, ooh, I slipped and said a cuss word. Excuse me. They say, well, they say, excuse my French. That ain't no French. You cursing. You saying 50 words, right? See, that's what we're talking about, because sometimes you have to plead your case. Because that's what you do before a judge. When you go before a judge and the evidence is laid out of what was done or what's been accused, most often you have to plead your case. That's not arguing, it's pleading. Because actually, we're going to plead our case in the day of judgment. You know that? Those people that Jesus talked about in that parable of the sheep and the goat, they were talking to him. They asked him, Lord, when did we do all these things? That's pleading your case. Now sometimes I don't always argue with people about stuff I did, and sometimes I do. It just depends on what the situation is. Because sometimes you get falsely accused of something, and you don't say nothing, guess what? Sometimes you get the swift punishment. Now, if you tell them, you say, well, if they accuse you of something, you say, well, I didn't do that, and they still punish you for it. Well, the Bible says, well, happy are ye. If you been persecuted for doing what is right, happy are ye. 1 Corinthians 11 chapter, around the 4th verse. For every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoring his head. Who's the head of man? Christ. If you say God is leading you, you're going to follow Christ. And you're going to follow every word that comes out of his mouth. If I say I'm following Elder Stacy here, this is my pastor here. He's the leader of this local church. He's actually the angel over this church. If you go into Revelation, we can get into that. The angels were set over the church. That's the preachers. And what the angel does, he watches over the flock. Right? Now, if I say I'm following him, and I don't do what he asked me to do, am I really following him? Don't you know people follow their boss more than they do their pastor? Is that right? It seems like, well, I'm going to say that because when they come to church, people say, well, I get there when I get there. I do something sometimes in the church, but I'm talking about working in the church. Folks like they'll get on the job, they'll work 12, 14 hours, right? And you come to church, you want to sit down and look at everybody. Don't you know we're supposed to be working in the body of Christ? Really? Yes, it's work to do. Don't you know there's people out there that need your help? Fifth verse, but every woman that prayeth or prophesieth, praying, we know what praying is. Prophesying is telling of a coming event. But you know, that has to be led of God. You know how you know if you're a true prophet or prophetess? What you speak comes to pass. And what you speak, it may take years for it to come. And sometimes what you have to do, I like what Ella told me. He said when you want to know what your spiritual gift is and you feel like you're being led in a spiritual gift, you have to practice it. And sometimes you have to practice it not before a group, a big congregation. Sometimes you have to do it to maybe your wife or maybe just a few family members. Say, hey, I had this dream or vision or something and I saw this happen. And if it come to pass, that gives you confidence. Rachel, what gives you confidence? By knowing what you're doing. See, the more you know how to do something, that gives you more confidence, not arrogance. See, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. See, a person that's arrogant is not humble. What do you mean? A person that's arrogant, it's hard to tell them something. It's hard to correct them. That's the difference. A person that is confident, they use the gift with love. With love. And we know love is patient, right? And kind. I will say that, all right? Let's move on.